then that is a huge, huge amount of money. All right, page 6 of the Standard today. If you have evidence of stolen, go to DCI. This is Uhuru talking to leaders yesterday as he opened the devolution conference. But maybe just to start with his remarks, of late, he seems to be a very angry president.
He does.
Do you agree? And do you think maybe that is due to the frustration that he has as a president?
I think he's frustrated and he probably doesn't feel like he's getting support in his fight for graft. Being his last term, he probably wants to leave a good legacy, you know, be remembered for something. So I feel his frustration and maybe that's why he's so angry, you know. He needs this done, but, you know, he probably doesn't feel like I'm getting support.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
Well, some might say and blame him for it in the sense that this war should have started in his first term. There doesn't seem to have been that much energy and annoyance and anger towards corruption. And this should have started in the first term. Your thoughts?
I feel like his first term probably... he knew he was going to run for a second term, and he still needed, you know, a lot of support to make sure he goes through for a second term. And knowing that corruption was an issue even then, maybe just being careful not to unnecessarily ruffle feathers, probably. Those would be my thoughts.
Okay, so one might argue and say that it's his own making that is frustrated, because now trying to do things a little bit too late with a pressure of time, then that becomes a problem. But also looking at the devolution conference and the fact that this was opened yesterday, this is the 6th one. And your thoughts so far on devolution, especially the conferences, and whether they bear fruit?
I think devolution in itself is bearing fruit. And, you know, no matter how little, you know, services like healthcare, that's devolved. Like before, you know, everything needed, most people needed to come for, you know, medication, treatment at Kenyatta National Hospital. But with the devolved system, it gives the people in the counties a little bit more access. It's not efficient yet, but there's some progress that's been made. And I think if we just keep focused on the right things, you know, put money in the right places, pay our health practitioners, listen to their views, then we will make progress. Yeah. All
right, and there's also another interesting story still on that, matters devolution on page 6. Leaders display opulence at governor's meet. And this, of course, there's a picture of the huge guzzlers that were assembled there. But this, of course, paints a picture for us as Kenyans. And the question is, are our leaders in it for servant leadership or for gain? Because when you look at the difference between when one possibly has taken leadership and when they become leaders, when we look at the opulence and their lavish life, one is left wondering whether their positions are really there to serve mwananchi or to serve themselves.
I think there are two sides to the coin. You know, when someone is elected into office, there's the expectation the mwananchi has of the person. And because our culture is so handout related, you will find that many people from the constituency will go to the MP or the elected leaders, you know, for all sorts of things. Funeral, my wife gave birth, I need school fees, we have a harambe. Because of the culture that we have, there's an expectation the electorate has of the leader. And so it sort of pushes them to, you know, act in a certain way because of the expectation of the electorate. So I think there are two sides to it. I wouldn't say it's driven so much just by the elected leaders, but both have played a role.
But it seems, if I can use the term, it feels to me sometimes like it's a toxic relationship between the leader and the electorate. And what I mean by that is, yes, there is that push and expectation that once Mheshimiwa arrives, they're there to solve your problems, whether it's school fees, whether it's somebody who's sick in hospital, some even to the extent of funerals. But is it possible that the Mheshimiwa has also kept it that way so that he becomes the solution provider, so that now when he comes, when he says, vote for me and I'll sort your problem out, but he's sorting your problem at a personal level, not coming up with policies and things that sort out our problems for posterity.
And I think that's why devolution is very important, and having like proper structures in place, because then that moves, you know, development and progress from the MP handing out you know, or the elected leader handing out from time to time a few shillings here and there. Because if you have structures, it means if my wife is expecting a baby, they can get treatment. I don't need to go to my elected leader. You know, if my children need to go to school, you know, there's a structure. I don't need to go to my elected leader and say, hey, my child scored an A in school but cannot get into admission because I do not have the fees. Because the main issues actually that affect people are education, health, housing. Everything, most things, you know, revolve around the needs of the people. Most of them revolve around that. And if that can be sorted out through devolution, then I think we'll have solved half
of Kenyans'
of the problem. Yeah.
All right, and we hope our governors are, you know, able and willing to do that, because then it remains in question. Page 9 is a sad story, and many of us will remember Jadudi, who battled cancer for 7 years, but he finally succumbed. And of course, he came into the limelight at some point where there was crowdfunding, and he came out very strong and has basically lived for 7 years in a lot of pain and a fight against cancer, but he finally succumbed. Again, looking at this state of our health sector, he had to go to India for treatment. And of course, that brings into light and into the fore that sometimes we may be able to live a little bit longer if our health facilities were able to help us out.
I really think one of the things the government should consider doing, especially around cancer and the whole issue of health, is maybe explore the possibility of having some generic drugs manufactured here, just to reduce the cost and access to medication. Because one of the main reasons why actually people have to go to India is because the cost is lower there, and there's more like expertise. So, and some of these things, you know, because I think we are able, we can sort them out. If we're really serious, if we put focus and prioritize health, not just talk about it, we can resolve this.
We can make progress.
Yes.
All right, and in the Standard on a Wednesday, we normally have the hustle, and this is what young people are doing in regards to entrepreneurship and making sure that the country is economically stable. And maybe just to glean your thoughts, I was speaking to a young entrepreneur yesterday, and one of the things they said is that Kenya is one of the most difficult places to build a business, which should not be the case. I don't know if you feel the same, although there are those who still manage to make it and there are opportunities, but do you feel that Kenya is a difficult place generally, especially for the young, to build a business and, you know, somehow make it look up?
I think I agree with them. It's difficult because, first of all, like the taxing system is not streamlined. There's so many taxes that you have to, and government compliance certificates that you need to get, KRA, KEBS, you know, there's so many, they're numerous. It's not aligned, like it's not streamlined, so that you just have, you know, this is the only thing I need to do, bam. I mean, it's improved a lot because of, they've streamlined the processes of, you know, business registration and company registration and something like that, and things like that. But it can be even better. And then the other thing that I know affects a lot of young people and a lot of people who want to get into business is access to capital and access to credit even after you have the business running, you know, to refinance the business. So we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go.
But Kenyans generally are very hardworking, especially given the right environment. We still manage to try our best to work, but evidently that it's not an easy economy to work in.
No.
It isn't. All right, we're going to now take a look at the Daily Nation, and the headline is still on the CS for and this is in regards to the probe that is going through why Rotich is walking a tightrope. And there are also some comments here from leaders, and we have one from the British High Commissioner in Kenya, that's Nick Haley, who says individuals or organizations found guilty of stealing should be held accountable, which should include forfeiting the proceeds of their crime. We have the president who said thieving ways in both the national and the county government will not be allowed to continue, and seeking shelter in ethnic solidarity will win that war. So, of course, the war on corruption, and Uhuru saying that we should keep tribe out of war. And, of course, Kenya is a very ethnic community.
We are.
And every time something comes up, whether political, whether now it's something to do with graft, the tribe card has to be pulled out. Do you think we'll ever come to a point where, as Kenyans, we think as one nation, especially like when it's time for sports? If we have one of our Kenyan runners run, we never think tribe. When we transact out there, you know, when we're doing business, we never think tribe. I've never seen anybody walk into a shop and ask, what tribe are you before I buy? But when it comes to matters politics, that tribal card has to be pulled out.
You know, politics is about interest. So, I mean, it makes sense why the ethnic card, you know, is always put on the table. But yes, I think eventually we're still a young nation, 55 years, you know, compared to most developed nations that have maybe managed to get over ethnicity, race. So eventually we will get there as we grow. But for now, it's a thorn in the flesh.
Although, as we say that, I mean, if we look at what we'd call mature democracy, say, for instance, the US, they still have problems with race. You'll still have black, white. Even amongst the white, you'll have the rednecks. You'll have, I mean, there's all sorts of categories. Or if you go to Northern Ireland, they also have issues amongst the different, you know, ethnic communities that they have.
So it's just something maybe we need to figure out how to deal with it, like just realize that this is an issue we have. Is it something that we want to primarily work against so that it's not always an issue? You know, whenever someone is getting an appointment, there's always the regional balance and, you know, ethnic balance. I don't think that's how it needs to be. I think we should always think about capability and you know, merit. But unfortunately, in our case, this is something that will keep coming up, at least for the next few years.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's look at page 2 and some good news. HIV cure closer as London man cleared of virus. Now, this is a man who had a bone marrow transplant from somebody who had a DNA that was resistant to HIV. But this, the scientists have said, is not saying that there is a cure, but it shows that there is hope and a cure could be found.
So what's the question?
No, well, your thoughts on this in terms of what do you think in terms of the progress that has been made there?
I think that it's brilliant. I think it's good that a cure has been found. I think it may not be as accessible for now because it's still a new thing, so it may be costly. But I also like just how, as Kenya, we've managed to sort of contain HIV. I mean, you can't compare 2019 to 1999, for example. That's 20 years, right? When it was, you know, even speaking and saying
about HIV was...
you have HIV, the stigma was crazy. I mean, right now, even if you said you have HIV, there's not as much stigma.
And discrimination.
There's a lot more acceptance that, okay, it's a disease, it's not a death sentence. You can be on ARVs, you can continue with your life. So I think we've made progress. So as much as we may not be able to access maybe the cure for now,
there's been strides made.
There's been major strides, yes.
All right. There's also on page 3, mother of woman in property lost to church seeking help. This is to do with a story that we ran where Prophet Uhuru apparently the family of one particular bishop in his church feel they have brainwashed her and have taken over her property. But not to concentrate specifically on Prophet Uhuru, but your thoughts on just generally religion and some of the things. I remember not too long ago there was what was being termed the Resurrection Challenge from South Africa with this pastor who claimed that he had resurrected a dead man. But generally speaking, religion in Kenya, the fact that we're 80%, quote unquote, Christians, yet we still have very major issues with corruption.
Which is an irony. I think if she's an adult and she's of sound mind and, you know, there's no proof of coercion, really, this is someone's decision. Yeah, if there's proof of, you know, she's of sound mind, she's an adult, this is a conscious decision she made, I really don't see what the problem would be. Maybe the issue would arise if it's discovered that, okay, she's not of sound mind and this was not a conscious decision that she made and maybe she was coerced into this or something like that, then we'd have a problem.
But if she's of sound mind and it's a decision she made, well,
Yeah.
to everyone their own.
Yes.
And if it's a decision she made, that's her property. So she has a right to do what she wants with it.
Yes.
On page 9, maybe just to get your thoughts, President submits Magoha's name, but your thoughts on the cabinet reshuffle. Professor Magoha, of course, now taking up the education docket, which many have said is the right decision. But your thoughts on the cabinet reshuffle and you know, in terms of those who are non-performing, there was a lot of hue and cry that the many CSs that so far are not performing and the president should crack the whip.
I feel so too. I feel like it was very little, you know. I would have expected more.
You expected more? Especially
with how the president has lately been expressing frustration in, you know, in delivery. I would have expected like a lot more in terms of the reshuffle, not just maybe 1 or 2 dockets affected. Yes.
Do you think it's an opportunity that the president lost to actually just make sure that he cleans out whatever he may need to in terms of his CSs who are not working?
I wouldn't say it's a lost opportunity. I mean, he's a president. He has the prerogative to, you know,
he can still do that any day.
He can still do that anytime.
Although I think it would not be very advisable to keep doing reshuffles. You need to do it once and do it well. But let's finish off with page 14, which is the cartoon, and it shows CS Amina Mohammed, Ambassador Amina Mohammed there with a very full in-tray in the sports docket.
Okay.
And nothing on the out tray. But there's also been a lot of talk regarding her performance in education and whether it was the right decision to put her on sports, given that there may not be much she knows technically in terms of sports.
Well, as much as she may not have technical knowledge about sports, she's still a leader, and I think she should be given the space and the opportunity to, you know, show that she can deliver. I think people are being too harsh and too judgmental. Give her time to settle in and then see what she can do. Yeah.
But what was your thoughts on her performance on education? Because then in management, you don't transfer one problem to another, you know, docket. If you're cleaning out, you clean out.
Oh, well, I think she did what she could. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and that's basically what we have on the dailies this morning. It is now 7 o'clock. We'd like to take a short break. When we come back, let's talk matters devolution, and what we're going to be looking at is how